Thanks for joining us. I'm Chris Henry with BizSpeed. Today I've got Chris Holmes with Georgian Solutions, and he's got a product, BC SMARTFuel, that's built on Dynamics 365 Business Central. This is part of our best practices series. We've done these for quite a number of years, and we always like to bring our partners in and help basically our customers and prospects learn more about running a fuel logistics company. And so I'm excited to have Chris here today. This is part of our series. So in February, we did our auto routing. In April, we're doing Business Central with BC SMARTFuel. You can see some of the other ones we've done. We've done M2X routing. We've done commodities trading and risk management. And all those are available. So if you're on this call and you need to get a copy of those, just shoot me an email and I'll have the contact information, or Charlie an email and he'll make sure you get a list of all of those. So I'm the host. So before we get started, I've got Chris here. So Chris, why don't you give us a little bit of info on your background, the company overview, and your role in the company?
Thanks, Chris. Yes, so I'm the president of Georgian Solutions. We've been working in the fuel industry since about between 2010 and 2013, like heavily. Um, uh, what we have done is built a product that, well, back in the 2010, 2013 timeframe, the product that we built was on top of Microsoft Dynamics Nav, and then eventually moved on to Business Central, which is like the successor, I guess, to Nav.
I think Business Central is like it consolidated everything from Microsoft, right? Like,
Yeah, well, it took all the good things so that it was in Microsoft Dynamics Nav, and then just sort of is continuing to build on top of them all the time. So all those great features that are in there now, yeah, it's a
what was
strategic product for them.
what was the background behind starting it? So how did you decide that you were going to build a fuel module on top of
Uh, Well, yeah, we got involved with some fuel companies and construction companies early on, and then it just seemed through word of mouth that we would just catch on to other fuel companies, and then taking all of the similar pain points and sort of addressing them, and finding throughout that process that a lot of those pain points are very common amongst all fuel companies.
Yeah. As we get going on this, if people have a question, you can raise your hand. The chat is basically an option for you for us. But if you've got a question, raise your hand, and you can raise your hand and put a question in there. Charlie Petrie's on as well, and Charlie will monitor that and make sure that we get your questions asked. So go ahead and feel free to ask any questions that you've got as we go through this. And this is really just a information session, sharing session that we've got just to get Chris's background, because he's done this for a long time. Like he's mentioned, since the 2010 timeframe and on, he's got a lot of background in the fuel industry. And I think we're starting to see, obviously, there's a lot of people that are looking at ERP systems, and there's a lot of change that's going on now. And I think a lot of people are starting to also look at Business Central. So maybe you can give us a little bit of background on why somebody would want to consider Business Central and SmartFuel too.
Well, yeah, one of the biggest benefits of going with Business Central, basically all ERPs right now, they're almost all cloud based, and then over the years that's saved a lot of people from the headache of having to source infrastructure like servers and equipment like that. So yeah, the state of the ERP, the way it is right now, it's very strategic for Microsoft. And one of the things that they do regularly is consistently add like new features and updates to the product. So they're constantly improving and tweaking it, and then finding better ways to do things, making it faster, and then just taking information back from their existing customers, and then improving the system frequently, like so at least twice a year.
Yeah. And where, like, if you were to look at companies, obviously there's, I think Navision typically, because it came from there, that was typically like solidly mid-market, but there's smaller companies as well as larger companies. So how do you kind of look at the size of a company that would consider Business Central, or does it matter?
Yeah, it doesn't matter a whole lot. Like you can purchase as little as one license for Business Central, and then use that as part of your organization. So that was another great thing about like transition from like an on-prem based ERP solution to the cloud-based ones is like the barrier to entry just like changed overnight because you can buy a single license, whereas before you would have to source a server, you purchase the SQL server, all of this infrastructure that would have had to go into it in order to restrict your access to like a full-fledged ERP system.
And what if people have like what are you seeing people convert from? Are there any common themes of what app is it QuickBooks conversion? Or are there other platforms? What are you seeing out there?
Yeah, it's a lot of QuickBooks, definitely a lot of QuickBooks conversions and a lot of Navision upgrades as well. So people taking their existing Navision and then transforming them onto the cloud. Um, yeah, other ones are like other fuel ERPs that people are moving on from as well. But yeah, the majority of them come from like QuickBooks and Sage.
And so a lot of on-prem moving to the cloud.
Yeah, a lot of on-prem moving to the cloud, or else doing QuickBooks from the cloud to Business Central.
What so typically what I've done these sessions, there's been four parts: strategy, process, people, and technology. So from a strategy standpoint, what do you see in the market? What's the state of the market today? Like how would you describe it? And then let's also talk about what you see coming in the next 2 to 5 years, I would say.
It again, it's like continuously growing the ERP space, just for several reasons. People are just becoming more comfortable. Even a few years ago, people weren't comfortable going to cloud-based solutions, whereas now it's everywhere. Um, and then people at one time too were a little bit afraid of like subscription pricing, but like it's a reality of life at this point, and
Yeah.
I think that'll continue on uh, yeah, for 2 to 5 years or however. Yeah, I think yeah, it's something that's just the way that it is. Yeah, and like I was saying before, another good thing is that Microsoft is and us as well are continuously putting enhancements and new features into the product.
So tell us about SmartFuel and what you've built on top of Business Central. So what do you get when you get SmartFuel that's not part of Business Central?
Yeah, so what we built on top of that is like we're using the core foundation, the core financial system that's already within Business Central itself, and then adding on different pieces. And a lot of it's to do with integrations too. Like, so the integration with BizSpeed, for example, with tank monitors. Another big integration that we have is with payment processing. So, in other words, if you've got fuel tickets and you're classifying a customer a certain way, then it can actually pre-authorize orders before the ticket is formally dispatched. Um, uh, and things like that. There's also like AP automation. So we're taking advantage of like Microsoft and cloud AI solutions in order to do BOL and invoice processing and like reading the invoices and BOL so that they go into the system smoother. Yeah, other functionality would be another big one would be pricing. So like automated pricing. And then we're able to grab the prices from all kinds of different places, even from price notification emails and things like that, and like automatically pull those into the system.
So yes, I know you've obviously added like the fuel BOL parts on top of this, but so you mentioned AI. I know that you guys are doing some things, and you want to talk about that?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, like so the AI that we've used that's been around for a while now is like Microsoft has an AI solution as far as like their OCR goes. So we've been using that for years and years now. So the way that you used to do it, it's a bit different now. But the way that you used to do it is you would train the invoice or the BOL, which supplier it's coming from, and then it would automatically go out and grab those documents from an email, like an AP email account, summarize it, pull it into the system. It would match the BOL with the invoice, and then if everything looks okay, it'll actually go ahead and auto post it with certain criteria such as matching the pricing for the day and that sort of thing.
Yeah, because Microsoft, I mean, obviously we're a Microsoft shop, so we're a .NET shop, and all of our technology stack is based on Microsoft. And I know Microsoft's been pushing on the AI side too. So it sounds like I'm not really that personally familiar with the inner workings of Business Central, but it sounds like they've started to incorporate some of their Copilot and other AI things in Business Central. Is that what's going on?
Yeah, yeah, you'll see Copilot all over the place within the system. Yeah. It'll go through, from a sales perspective, it'll go in and it'll create like an email for customers. It's giving advice on different things. They've started, one of the key things that they've got is like replenishment, inventory replenishment, and things like that to help with yeah, managing inventory. So yeah, like that's a big key strategy for Microsoft is incorporating their version of AI within the product.
And we use it on the front end in a number of places. One area is the same thing you do. So we will validate when we do trip and order reconciliation, we'll validate the load in the BOL image. We're moving that into the driver workflow instead of an after the fact, so we catch that stuff earlier. But yeah, I mean we've started to incorporate AI in a number of areas. We've also done it in interfaces to ERP systems where it seems like everybody has their own rules going back, and so we'll provide a place in the interface where we've generated the data, either JSON or XML, and then we let our customers write their own prompts for how to transform it, specifically going back into the specifically for going back into the ERP so that they don't have to always come back to us from a coding standpoint. I think and we've got some other areas too, but yeah, it's been interesting. What on the strategy side is, what would you, because you've done this for a long time, when do you think a CEO or a CFO should start considering, hey, maybe I should start looking at an ERP system and look at moving? So what are the conditions that you typically see somebody saying, hey, you should really start looking at this point? Obviously, if
Yeah,
their ERP is going out of business, then that's one. But other than that,
yeah, yeah, yeah. That's an easy one, but yeah, a lot of times, like if you're not getting the reporting that you're expecting, if you're not getting it in a timely way, if you've got a bunch of mistakes that have happened because like with the fuel, everything's so fluid, right? So it's easy for something to happen where like if the pricing's off or something like that to cause big problems. Other areas would be like if you've got employees that are manually entering information. So the purchase invoices is like a perfect example. So when you're getting your vendor invoices, if someone's having to rekey all that information in, and you can get a substantial number of those invoices, right? Like on a day-to-day basis. So just eliminating mistakes like that. So yeah, the biggest things is reporting and any operational issues that they're seeing that can
right.
be addressed. Yeah.
So, in terms of what people should consider on the strategy side, like when they look, what would you consider to be some best practices for how does somebody pick an ERP for best practices? Like what would be some tips that you would want to give them?
Reporting and like especially integrations, the ability to be able to integrate with the different systems. So like for example, like integrating with BizSpeed and like you want that all kind of to be frictionless, right? Like so you want the information to flow back and forth easily. You want the information to come in and be able to review it if you need to. Be able to take the information and then go a step further. So not just like with the automation itself, but take the information that's coming back and then be able to apply Power BI to it and other reporting tools like that. And then it just helps you make decisions within your company,
Yeah,
you know.
I mean, working with you has been fantastic, and it's kind of funny because we have APIs. We're kind of an API first company, but you've done all the integration with our APIs, and you did it quite quickly too. So it's been very
Yeah.
easy to work with you. And obviously, the ERP, we are not a financial application. We're a logistics application. So the things like the customers, ship tos, products, and including sales orders, those are all master data that goes into the ERP like BC SMARTFuel, and then you've pushed those and orders and everything back to us. And so, yeah, it's been interesting and really easy to work. And I think that's one thing. It's interesting that you mentioned that because some other ERPs that we've worked with, they just don't have the ability on the ERP side to make it not just provide APIs, but to also make the API calls. They just have more limited ability. It seems like you've been able to, your team's been able to do it very quickly. So
Yeah, yeah, no, it's a great thing, and it's not necessarily us. It's like the Business Central platform itself just lends itself to being able to import and export information very easily. So yeah, yeah,
yeah,
that's why it's such a great platform to work off of.
yeah, because we had some Navision customers that have upgraded and they seem to do pretty well on the Navision side, being able to make API calls there and provide API calls, so which was interesting. So
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
What about on the logistics side? What's your experience in terms of strategy and when do you think people need to look at external logistics solutions like ours?
As soon as long as they have trucks, then they should be looking at a logistics platform. Like I mean, there's the benefits are like endless, right? So yeah, just from routing, all of the checks that go into it, and then the ability to get the information back very quickly. I mean, all of that is like you know super beneficial. It's almost crazy to operate without one.
Yeah. I mean, I always talk about the ERP sides, and I've talked to Charlie on this, but every ERP system has a warehouse management module, but they all seem to, it's as soon as you have any kind of complexity, they all end up using something like Manhattan. And I always use that example too, right? So it's like even though ERPs may have some logistics capabilities, as soon as you start getting into anything more complex, then you start looking at external platforms just because that's their core focus. And you get the logistics updates all the time. That's all we do is invest in the logistics technology side of it. So
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
in terms of processes and implementations, what are some of the best practices you've seen from an implementation standpoint?
Yeah, one of the biggest um, the biggest success elements is like frequent meetings, like during the implementation process. So like weekly or like multiple meetings throughout the week, and then participation and testing. So being and then training on top of that. But the participation and training, testing goes hand in hand with training, I would say. So if you're like testing that everything is working properly and that you're comfortable with it, then you can also take advantage of some of the features within Business Central. Like, it has a way of easily customizing the screens so that they suit the way that you work. So if you're doing like order processing frequently, then you're able to, customize the screen to like how you're working and what you're most comfortable with. So yeah, like as far as like the implementation goes, is like getting your hands on it as soon as possible, and then just the communication through like frequent meetings. That's
And where
probably
do you see people struggle the most on implementations?
the hardest part is like for everyone. It's usually the data migration. So taking the data from the existing system and then getting it into the platform. So yeah, it's just like another thing that happens too is like while you're migrating the data, a lot of times people aren't necessarily happy with the setup the way that it is. So for example, like the chart of accounts might not be exactly the way that you want it. So you would want to eliminate a bunch of GL accounts. And then maybe because the system's more optimized, you don't necessarily need all that. You might not be happy with because where you're coming from, the way that your customers are numbered and items, you can reduce all of the SKUs and things like that because you've just got too many over time and just things like that. So
And
those
are
are
the are most of the implementations like which modules do most people do from a process standpoint? Obviously, the financial modules.
yeah, financial, any of the AR and AP type modules definitely come in. Pricing for sure is one that everyone wants. Um, yeah, those would be the key ones for sure.
And I know you've done some integration with like DTN and Opus. So from a pricing, it might be helpful for people to understand some of the options and how you got what you've seen and what you think would be better practices across the pricing side.
Yeah, so as far as pricing goes, like you're getting that information on a daily basis. It's there, so you want it to come into the system automatically. So like there's a mapping functionality within the system where you can select the racks that you're using and loading from, put them in, and then you can apply like um, your different cost plus methods, to the customer, uh, depending on what location they're being delivered to, as well as like what terminal you're loading at.
And then, are you seeing like there's been this constant theme of AI. So, are you seeing we've seen some of this, but are you seeing people use AI to help with like the data cleansing part of it?
Uh, Not really on the data cleansing side. Like AI, at least from my perspective, it does it does its best guess, right? So with as far as like data goes, it will do stuff like it'll do stuff well, like so if the data is not structured properly, then it'll go through the data and like be able to pull out, like say for example, you've got like some number that's embedded within some sort of document. It'll be able to extract that properly, but like you don't want to go too far as the data cleansing goes, because it will make guesses which are sometimes wrong, and with the financial application you don't necessarily want that.
And because we've seen from a data standpoint, obviously on the logistics side, one thing that you have to have, we have to have clean addresses. And so a lot of legacy systems don't enforce that. And people have gone in and they put a account number in the address one, and then address two is the actual one, or they might have a post office. So we obviously have some tools that we help clean up. But when you talk about the data cleansing, what do you see more common from a process with data and what people need to look at?
Yeah, one of the integrations that we have, like as far as like fixing addresses goes, is like the Google. So it'll go through all of like your ship to addresses or delivery points, and then it can give you the GPS coordinates, the exact GPS coordinates for all of those. Fix things like counties if they don't exist, to make sure that your taxes get calculated properly, things like that.
And then on the technology side, obviously we've talked about AI some, but are there what changes do you think are going to happen in the next couple of years just from a general technology? Do you see anything new from a Business Central and SmartFuel?
I think, yeah, like from the Microsoft perspective, yeah, they'll continue using like Copilot to help with training and making people aware of different features within AI. Like our perspective on AI would be we're constantly using it. We've got like an application that's being tested right now, where it'll actually look at the emails from like a customer inbox, right? So, and then it'll judge the sentiment of it, and then it'll analyze and decide, and if it's the correct email address, and it gathers what the customer is asking for. So if they're asking for tickets or statements or invoices, then it'll automatically respond and attach those and then get back to the customer.
Oh, well,
So
that's pretty cool. I didn't know
yeah,
that. Yeah.
yeah. So things like that are useful as far as like AI goes. And I can see other things happening too, with AI being used to not actually do routing, but to analyze routes like after the fact. So taking like a big cross section of data, like of routes that have been done, and having it look at it and like determining any sort of optimizations that could be happening in that sense.
What technical skills on the technology side does a customer need when they're implementing Business Central and Smart Fuel? Or
Again, yeah, again, like before, when you were implementing with Dynamics Navision and things like that, you would have to have like a tech team on your side usually to install infrastructure. There'd be like a thick client that would have to go on the workstation and things like that. Basically now, like when it sits on the Microsoft tenant, uh, you know, the best practice would be is like to have your email and everything else alongside Business Central in there. It just streamlines a bunch of other things like the Power BI. And again, you're sending emails for statements and things like that, and it works well because of like the security restrictions that are in place for all that kind of thing.
You've mentioned Power BI a couple of times. Everybody may not be familiar with that, so you want to talk about the Power Platform and what that is?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, the Power Platform consists of a number of things, but the core one that we use is well, we use Power App too for like a warehousing application, but um, we use Power BI mainly for doing a lot of the reporting. So it works well with again with getting larger cross sections of data and then getting reports. So there's lots of numbers that you want to see, like in terms of fuel, maybe sales on the operational side. And then it'll gather the information, and then these reports are available to the appropriate people within your organization.
And what I think you guys generally handle all the technology side. Somebody doesn't need to have development skills on their team
Mm.
doing an implementation, right? Or not?
No, no, no. Yeah, there's not really any technical requirement on the customer side. Yeah, not a whole lot anyway.
And then what integration? So obviously, hopefully you'll be integrated with us if you guys, but if people use, Smart Fuel, but besides the logistics side, what are the typical integrations that you see for a fuel company?
Again, with pricing, integrations, and then another great one that everyone should be using is like is from like an accounting customer perspective. Is like again when you're using if people have like a credit card on file, then we're able to pre-authorize against that, and then after the fuel's delivered, um, it'll put in the actual value, and it just saves like a ton of AR headaches.
I think
Um,
that's especially helpful, like on propane, right? I mean, is that where you see? Because you got,
yeah, yeah. Anytime that you're delivering, it's not necessarily when you're doing like OSR or like wheel to wheel type things, but yeah, if you're doing like home heating and yeah, anything like that, then yeah, it's huge.
yeah, where it's a lot more payments along those lines.
Yeah.
So from a people standpoint, what does a typical project team look like for customers? What should they plan on?
Like from the customer perspective, you usually have someone that's in the accounting, you have someone in operations, and then there'll be another person that's in management. It may even be like the owner themselves. A lot of times that are participating like pretty actively in the whole process. So
And what should they plan? Like a couple of questions, but how long are projects typically, how long does an implementation typically take? And then what should they plan on from a time commitment standpoint? Because I think that's one area where we see people not understanding the time commitment with either the logistics side or the ERP upgrades.
yeah, the time commitment it grows as you get closer to the implementation. So they're involved at first, with testing the data and then testing to make sure all the financial reports are right and the trial balance and everything like that looks the way it needs to. And then as it gets closer and closer to the implementation, then the involvement is a lot more as people get ready to do the final deployment.
Because they also have, obviously, people have their regular job and they're trying to do that. But, is there
Yeah.
something on the accounting side where for the last month they should plan on almost full time or half time? Or what are you thinking that you've seen is better from a success standpoint?
Yeah, it becomes like yeah, towards the end of it, like the involvement, yeah, it's heavy. It's like a third to half your time is spent, within the last few weeks leading up to the changeover.
And then what obviously when you switch ERP, so if it's a Navision update, it's not such a big deal probably, but if they're coming from another system, how do you overcome the entrenched practices versus the best practices? Because I know that you and I've talked about that a little, and
Usually it's like good management on on the customer side that helps with that. So a lot of times, the people don't really have any choice. Like this is the system, and this is what you need to do in order to do your job. And a lot of times, things aren't that much different. They're easier. So the adoption shouldn't be that difficult for them. Like, yeah, the philosophy when you're doing one of these is like it should be at least as good, but you strive to have it better than the way that it was before for like the individual processes that individuals have to do within the company.
And are there specific, like, give any examples where people have, um, like, is it a costing or a pricing where, you had to try to coach them, hey, this system now offers, a better way to do pricing than you might have done or whatever. It could be any of those.
Uh, yeah, yeah. What'll happen is like along the way, like when you're doing the training and things like that, they'll kind of some people want to revert back to the way that they were doing things before, and then once you show them like like it's automating, it's doing everything for you, like then it clicks in and uh, you yeah like just you will naturally just adopt that process just because it makes your life easier, right?
Yeah. And are you seeing, obviously, do you see from a schedule standpoint, if somebody's got a larger footprint and let's say they have eight or 10 depots, do you see them typically do projects and do a big bang and just do one conversion and do everything? Or do they do more often like, hey, we'll roll this out by branch or something like that? Or,
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You'll definitely see it. Like, yeah, you can definitely roll it out like in stages. So you'll have one part of the organization that can, yeah, roll out one piece of it. The tricky part is like tying two financial systems together. But you can operate Business Central without having to convert the financial system. And then, you could do things like export the data. So in other words, like if you're doing it, um, say you're just doing like the truck integration, then we're getting that information back, can do all the checks and things like that, and then we'll put it into the financial system. But you can also export that out so that it can be used on something that's running side by side.
there's always pros and cons. What are your thoughts in terms of big bang one conversion versus doing it by branch?
I've done it both ways before. Like it's preferred to do the Big Bang approach. Uh, uh, yeah, it just becomes it can become difficult, like trying to manage, two systems at once, and then making sure that they tie together properly. So yeah, the Big Bang. At one time, like even going back in the days with Nav, you would have like systems running in parallel, and then it just sort of just over the years, it's just not a great idea. It's just yeah, it's just like yeah, the systems will never seem to balance against each other. So
Yeah. Well, that's why
yeah,
you're here. That's why we ask those kinds of
yeah,
questions. So,
yeah.
yeah. So we're at the end of the regular part of the interview. We have this lightning round that we always do. So I've got a handful of questions I'm going to ask you. So the first one is, what's the craziest aha moment a customer shared after go live?
Mm, the craziest aha moment. Oh, probably with regards to auto posting. One of the functions that we have in there is like auto posting. So when the orders come back from BizSpeed or wherever, then they come into the system, and then there's a number of checks that are done on them, and then they can be reviewed. And that's typically what happens is like you'll review the order, and then someone will manually post it. But the auto posting for some people is just like, it changes a lot of things because all of a sudden you're seeing the financial information right away. You're not waiting on tickets to be processed and orders to be processed. And, it just speeds everything up. Yeah.
And then this may go, you'll have to pick something else, but what's one feature that most surprises customers?
The fact that the integrations are simpler, I would say, than what they thought they would have been. So yeah, it becomes that at times it becomes like candy for the customers because they're like, can you integrate this? And basically, if it's got an API, then we can integrate with it on some level.
One piece of advice that you would have for customers.
Use the system to its potential, I guess, would be, yeah, it is like trying to take advantage of all the functionality that's within the system itself and then use it to its potential. So, like even the core business central things, like, just be managing your inventory, do it constantly, take advantage of all the reports and the great reporting that's in there and that sort of thing.
And then what about for partners? What would be one piece of advice you'd have for partners?
Um, uh, oh, that's a good one. I guess it would be like um, yeah, well, communication's always good. So like the communication with the partners is, yeah, just keeping that going. That's strong, and yeah, that makes a huge difference, definitely in the rollouts.
And then what about the last question? What's the one area that you see AI making the biggest impact in the next year?
Probably with the AI agents. So like, yeah, some of the agents, the what we were talking about before, where like it's looking at the sentiment of the email and like being able to do things for people. So yeah, just continuing on with that. Like there's another AI agent that we developed that it'll do like your income statement and balance sheet. And then you can type in using the large language model. You can say you do previous month and previous year as well, and then it generates the statement for you. So just things like that. So just
Is that
using it.
something that you guys have added, or is that part of?
it yeah. It's not formally in there now, but it's available if people want it. Yeah,
Yeah, we've
yeah,
seen that, and we've had some discussion internally about being able to ask questions on our data model. And so instead of if you don't have a report, because we have, I don't know, we got 50 plus reports that are all standard, plus we have ad hoc reports on top of those. But if you want to be able to query things, we've seen some interest in being able to do just what you said, being able to type in a request, and then it would generate the query and the data for you. So
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's
yeah,
kind of amazing.
yeah.
Yeah,
And I think we've seen the agent side too be something that we see more of that, like similar, like on the customer email side. Same thing with effectively like a dispatcher agent. So dispatchers are monitoring. Well, you can get an agent that monitors similarly the same things that a dispatcher should be doing and send notifications out. So we see some growth in those types of things on our side. So
yeah, yeah, definitely.
yeah.
Hmm.
Well, yeah, so this has been great. This was just a quick chance for us to go through, learn about Business Central and Smart Fuel. And also, I appreciate it because you have a lot of experience doing these implementations. I'll make sure that from a contact standpoint, I'll put it up right here at the end and share this with people. If you'll hang on just a second. If you got questions, feel free to reach out to Chris and share that. And I'll make sure that from a follow-up standpoint, you guys have Chris's email, and then if you've got questions, Chris's email is on the screen right now, but you can also reach out to Charlie as well or me, and we'll be happy to put you in touch with Chris. So thanks, Chris. This was awesome.
Yeah, thank you.
And I
Yeah,
look forward
this
to
was fun.
continuing to working with you. So
Yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely the same.
yeah, awesome. All right, thanks. Have a good day.
Okay.
Thanks.
Bye.